Marcus Wesson, the Vampire King. Dive into the harrowing tale of Marcus Wesson, the notorious Vampire King, whose gruesome crimes sent shockwaves through society and left a legacy of fear and disbelief.
Well, I don't think anybody could have predicted what occurred. No one could have thought that a human being could be so demented and so evil that they would kill their family like that, 9 children.
Marcus Delon Wesson, born August 22, 1946, is an American mass murderer and child rapist, convicted of 9 counts of first-degree murder and 14 sex crimes, including the rape and molestation of his underage daughters. His victims were his children, fathered through incestuous sexual abuse of his daughters and nieces, as well as his wife's children. He has been described as the worst mass murderer of Fresno, California. Marcus Wesson was born in Kansas, the eldest of 4 children of Benjamin and Carrie Wesson. His mother raised him in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Wesson claimed that his mother was a religious fanatic. His father was an alcoholic and child abuser who abandoned the family when Wesson was a child. By the early 1960s, the family had moved to San Bernardino, California. After dropping out of high school, Wesson joined the U.S. Army, serving from 1966 to 1968 as an ambulance driver. Shortly after leaving the military, Wesson moved in with an older woman, Rosemary Solorio, and her 8 children in San Jose, California. In 1971, Solorio gave birth to Wesson's son. In 1974, Wesson began sexually abusing Solorio's 8-year-old daughter, Elizabeth. Wesson married Elizabeth when she turned 14 and he was 34. 4 months later, she gave birth to her first child. Eventually, the couple had 10 children together, including 1 infant who died. One of Elizabeth's younger sisters left her own 7 children with them, claiming to be unable to care for them due to a drug problem. Wesson never held a steady job. He lived off welfare and had his working adult children give him all their earnings. In 1989, Wesson was convicted of welfare fraud and perjury. The family often lived in rundown shacks, boats, and vacant houses. Wesson was abusive towards his wife and children. He prevented Elizabeth from participating in the children's upbringing. He homeschooled the children and taught them from his own handwritten Bible that focused on Jesus Christ being a vampire. He told the children that he was God and had them refer to him as Master or Lord. He taught the children to be prepared for Armageddon and said that the girls were destined to become Wesson's future wives. Wesson's school curriculum involved teaching girls oral sex as young as 8 or 9. Their domestic responsibilities included washing Wesson's dreads and scratching his armpits and head. Before March 12, 2004, Wesson had declared his intention to relocate his daughters and their children to Washington State, where Wesson's parents lived. On March 12, 2004, several members of Wesson's extended family, along with 2 nieces who rebelled against him, converged on his family compound demanding the release of their children. Fresno police were summoned to what was described as a child custody issue, and a standoff ensued. Wesson told the police to wait at the door and disappeared into the home. When he came back to the door, his clothes were bloodied.
15 years ago, 9 of Marcus Wesson's children and grandchildren were shot dead and stacked in a back bedroom of their central Fresno home.
All the bodies were stacked up like cordwood.
The residence that once stood at 761 West Hammond Avenue may be gone, but the memories still haunt many of the first responders who discovered the grisly details that fateful day. Chief Jerry Dyer had been Fresno's chief of police for less than 3 years when he got the call.
It was something that I don't think anyone in law enforcement will ever forget.
Wesson sits on death row at San Quentin. In the summer of 2005, he was convicted of killing 9 of his children. He had fathered them with his wife, daughters, and nieces.
This was, an incestuous relationship that we had never seen. And then we found out about their belief systems. It appeared on every indication that this was a cult.
Wesson believed he was Jesus, and if anyone tried to separate the family, then they would all go to heaven. and even went so far as to purchasing caskets from a local antique store months before the mass murder took place.
He had such incredible influence over his children and his wives that this was the outcome, that he was able to control the mind of people to do the unthinkable, very similar to what Charles Manson did.
Marcus Wesson is now 72 and is unlikely to ever face execution.
Marcus Wesson was a menace to society, and he is somebody that I'll never forget.
At Wesson's trial, the prosecutor was Chief Deputy District Attorney Lisa Gamoyan. Wesson was represented by public defenders Peter Jones and Ralph Torres. They presented the defense that his 25-year-old daughter, Sabrina, committed all the murders, including of her son, Marche, and then committed suicide.
Every chilling detail is still fresh for defense attorney Ralph Torres, who worked on the court-appointed Wesson defense team.
I see all the evidence. It was the most gut-wrenching part of the case where I was just a young father. I had a 5-year-old boy, and there was a boy that looked from behind like my kid.
Even in his 34-year career, it's a case that continues to stand out the most on his resume.
It was life-changing. I've never seen anything like it. I've done 16 murder trials since then, and nothing like it.
Well, hey, these people are strange. Nobody's ever talked to him. When the father would come out there, he was like supervising. He was standing with his arms like this, or he'd be sitting down.
Something terrible, sad.
Certainly leave an indelible image across this city that hopefully will never, ever be replicated in any form.
After learning about the vile and gruesome acts committed by Marcus Wesson, do you believe the death sentence should be fully carried out after it's given? Give your answer in the comments below, and please like and subscribe for more Crooks Crime.